The man at the door looked like he had already lost everything. His clothes were dusty, his face hollow with exhaustion, and in his trembling arms was a crying baby wrapped in a thin, worn blanket. But what happened next would change 3 lives forever. Before we begin this story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that even in the darkest moments, kindness can rewrite someone's destiny. It was a cold evening when Daniel knocked on the small wooden door of a modest house at the edge of town. The sky was turning gray, and the wind carried the quiet sadness of a long winter. Inside the house lived a woman named Maria. Maria was 32 years old and had lived alone for nearly 5 years. She had gentle brown eyes, long dark hair usually tied in a loose braid, and a quiet life filled with routine. Every morning she opened her small bakery shop, and every evening she returned to her silent home. Silence had become her closest companion. 5 years earlier, Maria had lost her husband and her newborn daughter in a tragic hospital accident during childbirth. Since that day, her heart carried a wound that never truly healed. She kept the baby's small blanket folded in a wooden box beside her bed, unable to let go of the dream of being a mother. On that cold evening, Maria had just finished cleaning the kitchen when she heard the knock. It was not a confident knock. It was hesitant, weak, like someone who was afraid to disturb her. She opened the door slowly. And there stood Daniel. He was around 35, tall but thin, with tired blue eyes and messy brown hair that had not been trimmed in months. His coat was worn out, and the crying baby in his arms seemed barely a few weeks old. "Please," Daniel said quietly, his voice cracking with desperation. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just need some milk for my child." Maria looked at the baby, whose small face was red from crying. The sound of the baby's sobs seemed to echo in her chest like a forgotten memory. "Her mother?" Maria asked softly. Daniel lowered his eyes. "She died 2 weeks ago." The words hung heavily in the air. Maria felt something twist deep inside her heart. She stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come inside." Daniel hesitated, embarrassed by his appearance, but the baby's cries grew louder, so he walked in. Maria quickly warmed some milk in the kitchen. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared the bottle. It had been years since she had touched anything meant for a baby. When she handed the bottle to Daniel, he tried to feed the child, but the baby kept crying, turning away from the bottle. "I don't understand," Daniel said nervously. "She hasn't eaten since morning." Maria watched carefully. Then something unexpected happened. The baby reached toward Maria. Almost instinctively. Maria slowly held out her arms. "May I?" she asked gently. Daniel nodded, exhausted and unsure. The moment Maria held the baby, the crying softened. The tiny child rested against her chest, gripping the fabric of her sweater with small fingers. And then something unbelievable happened. Maria felt a sensation she hadn't experienced in years, a strange, aching warmth in her body. Her body, which had once prepared to feed a child but never had the chance, responded. Nature remembered what grief had buried. Maria sat down slowly, overwhelmed by emotion. I think she's hungry," she whispered. Daniel watched in confusion. Maria carefully fed the baby herself. Within minutes, the crying stopped. The room became quiet except for the soft sounds of the baby feeding. Daniel covered his face with his hands. Tears slipped through his fingers. For the first time in 2 weeks, his daughter was calm. For the first time in 2 weeks, someone looked at his child with tenderness instead of pity. Maria felt tears sliding down her cheeks as she looked at the tiny face resting peacefully against her. The feeling she thought she had lost forever, had returned. Motherhood. Daniel stayed longer than he planned that night. Maria insisted he eat some bread and soup from the bakery. As they talked, Maria learned Daniel's story. He had once worked as a mechanic in a small garage. Life had been simple but stable. When his wife became pregnant, they were both overjoyed. But complications during childbirth had taken her life. Hospital bills consumed his savings. He lost his job while staying home to care for the newborn. Soon he found himself wandering from place to place, trying to keep his daughter alive. Her name was Lily. Maria looked down at the sleeping baby. "Lily," she whispered. It was a beautiful name. That night, when Daniel prepared to leave, Lily began crying again the moment Maria handed her back. Maria hesitated. Then she said something she never expected to say. "You can stay here tonight." Daniel looked shocked. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You're not." He stayed. One night turned into two. 2 nights turned into a week. Maria helped care for Lily while Daniel searched for work. Each morning Lily would smile the moment she saw Maria. Each night Maria would rock her to sleep. Slowly, the empty house filled with laughter, tiny footsteps, and the sweet sound of life returning. Maria realized something profound. Lily was healing a part of her heart she thought would remain broken forever. Meanwhile, Daniel noticed the change in Maria too. The quiet sadness in her eyes had softened. Her smile had returned. Weeks passed. Daniel finally found work at a construction site in town. The pay was small, but it was enough to start rebuilding his life. One evening, as he returned home, he saw Maria dancing slowly in the living room with Lily in her arms while music played softly from an old radio. Lily giggled. Maria laughed. For a moment, Daniel stood silently in the doorway. This looked like a family. But inside his heart, he struggled with something. He knew he couldn't stay forever. Maria had already done more than anyone could ask. One night after dinner, Daniel sat at the kitchen table. "I think it's time for me to find another place," he said quietly. Maria froze. The words felt like a sudden storm. "But Lily," she began. "She needs stability," Daniel said. "And I need to learn to stand on my own again." Maria nodded, though her heart felt heavy. The next morning, Daniel packed his small bag. But when he picked up Lily, she started crying. Loudly. She stretched her arms toward Maria. Maria's eyes filled with tears. The baby refused to stop crying. Daniel looked helpless. Finally Maria whispered softly, "Maybe Lily already knows where she belongs." Daniel looked at Maria for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised both of them. "Maybe we all do." Months later, the small house was no longer quiet. Maria still ran her bakery. Daniel worked steadily. And Lily grew up surrounded by love. People in the town often said Lily was lucky. But the truth was something deeper. 3 broken hearts had found each other at exactly the right moment. Daniel had knocked on that door asking only for milk. But what he found was something far greater. A mother for his child. A home for his family. And a second chance for a woman who thought she had lost everything. Sometimes life doesn't give us what we planned. But sometimes, it gives us something even better. And all it takes is one small act of kindness to change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that remind us how compassion can transform the world.